Hi there everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you've never been here before. My name is Joesephyr, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about something that, honestly, I've been bitten by a couple of times in the past, and I want to share with you guys how to survive gacha games in general. Now, I'm most well known on this channel for playing Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, but honestly, even if you don't play that game, this video will apply to any gacha game out there, whether it be a Final Fantasy related one like Record Keeper or Brave Exvius, or Opera Omnia, or any of the other ones out there that are really big, like Fire Emblem Heroes, Dragalia Lost. I'm going to be using a ton of different examples in this video just to show you guys the mentality that goes behind whether you want to pull on something in general on any gacha game. And I'm going to use Opera Omnia a fair amount in this video because I know it's what most of my viewers will want to be looking at, but honestly this will apply to you no matter what game that you play. Obviously, before we get started, I have plenty of social links in the description box below, including my Discord channel where we can discuss all sorts of things, including gacha pulling for various different games, and the TCG as well for Final Fantasy. I cover a lot of content on there, we can discuss that. I have my Twitch channel on there if you want to follow me on there, as well as my Patreon channel for anyone who wants to follow me and get my videos early and all sorts of extra stuff. Now, I got bitten pretty badly by the gacha bug, as it were, about a year ago now, and it was actually for Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, where I would end up lying about pulling to people and being really ashamed of what I was doing, and I'm doing this video because I do not want anybody else to have to experience that level of basically a gambling addiction. And because that is ultimately what these gacha pulls boil down to, is essentially gambling, and because you can spend real life money on these things, I don't want to end up where people, just end up sad or depressed or anything like that because of a game that they're playing. Now, the first thing that we're going to cover is the three types of gacha pullers that are out there in the world, and you don't have to identify with one of these, you can identify with them all, but the ones that I'm going to cover I'm calling favoritism, efficacy, and completionism. So favoritism tends to tie in with games that have kind of a licensed background like Final Fantasy or Fire Emblem. I know that Dragalia Lost is a big one, a topic of discussion right now because it's having a crossover event with Fire Emblem. So a lot of people are starting that game because they want the Fire Emblem characters. So what this tends to describe is people who pull or sort of relate their resources to characters regardless of how good they are within the game itself, but because they particularly love their characters. So within Opera Omnia, for example, we have Kuja, who is coming out from Final Fantasy IX fairly soon, along with his new EX weapon, which is the strongest weapon he can get, and he gets a lot more powerful. Now, luckily for me, Kuja is actually a meta unit, he is considered one of the stronger units in the game, but I would be pulling for him regardless because he's Kuja. So I can relate to favoritism a little bit, like I said, you don't have to identify with any one of these, because I identify with all of them to a certain extent, but favoritism tends to go to more casual players that just pull on these banners because they like the characters involved. Efficacy defines people who are pulling because they want the strongest units possible without necessarily having to go for everything. So, for example, in Brave Exvius, they've just released a character named Esther, who is far and beyond the highest damage dealer in the game, and people are going crazy over her, and she's way beyond what anyone expected. So a lot of people, including myself, have emptied their resources in that game trying to get this character, and they don't really care about their favourites or anything like that. They just want the strongest units possible. So that means that they are able to clear the largest amount of content possible with the fewest amount of pulls they can. So that kind of ties in quite nicely with a hoarding mentality. So people who are playing the game for the game itself, they might not necessarily be particularly attached to the license behind it, or if the game itself doesn't have a license beforehand, then it's going to cover a lot of, you're going to try and maximize efficiency or efficacy in order to get the most out of your pulls. And then completionism is something that I mostly wanted to touch on by defining these three types of people who play these games, because it's such a improbable task for so many people, because there are people out there, and a lot of them do content on YouTube, or they do Twitch streaming, things like that, and they feel pressure, some of them anyway, to try and get everything, so that they're trying to cover every base possible, because these games do tend to throw a curveball at you, and somebody who wasn't too powerful beforehand suddenly becomes amazing, or somebody people thought was amazing maybe isn't as good, or maybe there are just people who are massive collectors out there who just want everything. be prepared to spend a lot of money if you think that you're one of these people, because trying to do this as somebody who is free to play or somebody who isn't willing to spend an awful lot of money is practically impossible. The best example I can think of for this particular type of player is Final Fantasy Record Keeper. Record Keeper has hundreds, if not thousands, of relics within the game that are all behind a gacha wall. You will never, and even the people who have played that game since day one, you will never acquire everything unless you're willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, or there's limited things as well. So if anything, I'm trying to ward people away from this mentality because it's just not possible, in all honesty. Even if you are coming into a game later on and you think that you're going to be a completionist of some sort, then you've missed so much pro content beforehand, which isn't a bad thing, and I will say that now. But you're never going to acquire everything. So the reason I brought this particular mentality up is because I want to ward people away from it. If you're going into these games, especially if you want to save money and not spend loads of money or go free to play or any of these things, then just get that idea out of your head completely. One of the biggest things I notice when it comes to people who either spend too much money on these games or feel ashamed of the money that they spend on gacha games or anything like that in general is that a lot of online communities seem to very, very drastically frown upon anyone who does spend money when it comes to these games, and people wear F2P or free to play as a badge of honor. Now, there's nothing wrong with that inherently. If you've gone really far within a game and you've not had to spend any money on it, then that's great. You've done really well out of that. But I've always had a little bit of an issue with that kind of mentality because there are a lot of people who work on these games behind the scenes, and it's you can complain at certain companies because they're money grabbing or anything like that. But obviously, because so many companies are releasing games like these nowadays, it becomes par for the course. Whether you choose to accept that or not as it is entirely up to you. I kind of go with the flow, and I can expect that I'll get a few comments in the comment section where people are going, oh, I can't believe you're supporting this kind of thing. It's that's fine. But when it comes to somebody who is spending money on these things, they get to a point where they're not able to kind of showcase the things that they've accomplished within the game because it feels lessened by the fact that they've spent money on it. So what I'm trying to get at with this is, if you've not spent money on the game and you've done really well out of it, then fantastic, that's really cool. But please try not to shame other people who have spent money on it, because these games are built by people. It's nice to, if you feel that a game has earned your money, then there's nothing wrong with spending on it. But at the same time, you have to not let that overcome you and just end up spilling money after money after money after money, trying to fuel an addiction, essentially, where you could just kind of go, okay, take a step back, I've done my bit in terms of supporting the game, I don't need to do any more. So this now leads me on to my next point as well, which is coming on to knowing when to stop when it comes to pulling on a certain banner, or depending on the game that you play. I play a large different number of different mobile games out there that are gacha related, so I'm obviously not going to hit them all because there's a lot of them out there, but let me know in the comment section if there's a game that you're playing that I don't mention here that this applies to. But I'm going to use Dragalia Lost here as an example because, as I said earlier, they've just released a Fire Emblem collaboration. So knowing when to stop means that you're kind of playing your odds. You have to remember that these games are luck based. So in terms of when you try to get something you really want, you might not get it. Something you have to get into your head is you have to be okay with not necessarily getting what you want. Even though some of these games, like Dragalia, have a pity system where you will always get something when you pull a large number. Opera Omnia also does this, but it does it in a slightly different way. You will always get something, but it may not necessarily be what you want. And you have to be prepared for that. So they've released 3 characters with the Fire Emblem collaboration: Marth, Fjorm, and Veronica, all from Fire Emblem Heroes. You have a 4% chance of pulling a rainbow or a 5-star unit when you do a summon. The chance of one of those being a Fire Emblem character is 1.5 times. So 1.5% across the board. Obviously there's 3 of them, so that then is a 0.5% chance of you actually getting the unit you want from a single pull. So that's a 1 in 100 chance, or it's a 1 in 200 chance, sorry. So you have to bear the actual odds in mind when you go into these things, and be prepared to like kind of set a limit for how far you're willing to go when it comes to pulling for a unit like that. You have to you might get a different 5-star character, and you have to be happy with that. You know, because there's been so many times, and I know this from personal experience, because I actually did post a video about it about a year ago about Brave Exvius, and when I was really bitten by a bug and I was spending money that I shouldn't have spent on these games, and then it's like, so I'm speaking from experience. Set limits for how much of a resource you're willing to put in, or if you're willing to spend money, try and think what you could have spent that money on. That's a really important thing, because if you go into something like that and it's like you spend £30, for example, you know, that's a decent meal's worth. That's like half a console game. You could really try to just vision what you would have spent that money on instead, and instead you're looking at a chance of getting something that you don't necessarily need. So like, yes, it'd be nice, but you know, that's something that will come with time. Everyone has good days and everyone has bad days when it comes to pulling in any gacha game. I talk a lot because my luck is historically quite bad when I play a lot of these games, but there have been times where I've uploaded videos, like recently I uploaded a video for Opera Omnia where I actually got quite lucky with my pulls, and you know, and it does come to everybody. So try and identify the fact that even if you're not having a good day that day and you pull and you're trying to get something and you hit your limit, as I say, it's very important to set limits. You hit your limit and you've not gotten what you wanted, try and take a step back and just go, okay, I'll get something next time. Letting your emotions guide your kind of decision-making process is really, really bad and very difficult to beat. But again, speaking from personal experience, you have to kind of really fight your own emotions when it comes to doing stuff like this if you're really in deep with these games. So the two kind of topics that I'm going to cover when it comes to this is rage pulling and jealousy. Now, rage pulling is exactly what it sounds like. You didn't get that unit you wanted. You've just spent God knows how many gems or wormite or orbs and Fire Emblem Heroes or anything, and you didn't get what you wanted. God damn it, I deserve this. I need this unit, and it's my time to get it. So you keep going. Really bad idea. This is why I say it's so important to set limits on before you start going in on stuff. If you watch some of my other videos, and like whenever I've pulled on Opera Omnia, you'll see that that's the sort of thing that I try and do. I've not always adhered to that rule, and letting yourself slip once in a while isn't the worst thing as long as you keep it under control. But rage pulling in and of itself is very, very bad. You will only ever come out of it feeling worse. If you don't get it, you'll feel even worse than you did the first time. And if you do get it after rage pulling, honestly, I think that a lot of people aren't necessarily looking for the thing that they're actually pulling for. They're looking for that good luck feeling, and this is why it's so similar to gambling addiction and why it's a very, very dangerous game to be playing. What you want is to feel happy when you get the item or character or anything that you wanted, and not relief. If you start feeling relief instead of happiness when you're getting these characters or items, etc., then maybe it's time to take a step back. Jealousy is another thing that can be really, really difficult to beat when it comes to playing games like this, and I know that it was the thing, if I'm really honest with myself, it's the thing that really hurt me when I was pulling like hundreds of pounds worth of pulls on Brave Exvius. It's because, well, in that game in particular as well, there's this horrible little yellow bar that appears at the bottom of the screen, and whenever you log into it, which is, X player has just pulled this unit, and you're like, oh god, I don't have that and I really want it. And it's that can be a bit of a pain. But even if you're playing a game that doesn't have something like that, and you have a small group of friends that play it, that's amazing. Don't ever lose that. If you've got people to share these games with, they are good fun. And having a community or getting involved in communities is one of the best things about it. In fact, I encourage you guys to check out Discord channels. Like, I mean, I've already hosted my own, but you know, Opera Omnia, Dragalia, Record Keeper, Brave Exvius, all of these different, like Fire Emblem Heroes, all these different gacha games all have their own Discord channels that you can look up. They all have different content creators that you can look up. There's so much going on for these games that being a part of those communities is amazing. But people are going to kind of post their stuff when it's good. That's just fact. This is kind of like internet mentality, social media. This is just the way the world is now, where people will only show you the best of what they get. And when you're looking at Reddit, for example, which is notorious for this, when you look at a gacha mega thread of a game that you're playing, for example, and you see, oh, I got five stars in one pull, and I got this, I got that on my first ticket, or on my first summon voucher. Like, you're going to look at it and go, well, I've never got anything like that. When's my time going to come? So then you start pulling, and then you're like, okay. Well, and then we go back to rage pulling, where you're doing it, you're not getting that amazing luck that you've just seen on Reddit or on YouTube or anything like that, and going, well, where's mine? The thing to remember when it comes to this, to stop yourself from succumbing to that feeling of jealousy, is what I said earlier. Everyone has good days. Everyone has bad days. There are times where you can see someone get ridiculous luck one week, and then a couple of weeks later they'll get nothing and they'll spend all their resources. So just try not to get bitten by the jealousy bug with these things, because you might be having a bad day, but your good day will come, and those people who are having a good day, they're not going to have that luck forever. There will always, try not to see these people who have crazy luck as a threat. Be happy for them and just sit there and go, you did really well, that's awesome. And then just try and be happy for everybody, because then, you're being a part of a community that is growing and is really fun and ultimately will reward you. Something that I've started doing, actually, particularly in Opera Omnia, is hoarding. Now, anyone who's watched any of my videos knows that I have quite a large amount of resources within that game. And the reason for that is because the goal for me, and the fun fact, it's a little secret, and I'm sure a lot of people who've been on my Discord or anything knows this, I absolutely hate pulling on gacha games now. I actually detest it, because I assume that my luck is bad, so I don't want to pull because I don't want to be proven right. So hoarding resources has actually become a bit of an enjoyment in and of itself for me, so that I can get to a point where I'm like, oh well, I've still got this makes me happy. And people will always assume that you spend money on it, and this comes back to don't shame people who spend money. I do spend some money on these games, even now, even though I had my terrible experiences with it, I still spend some money on it. If a costume comes out on Opera Omnia that I really want, I'm gonna buy it. And if they do certain things on other games, then they do a really good deal on Dragalia, I might buy it, I might not, I might. But don't shame people if they do. So you just kind of but at the same time, that money is, or the things that you can spend money on are always going to be there. These games are very, very good at trying to entice you into thinking, oh, you've only got 2 days to buy this bundle, otherwise you're never going to be able to do it again. Next week there's going to be a different bundle. If you want to spend money on it, then feel free, but don't ever feel that you have to, because you don't. And that's a really important thing. If you take anything away from this video, let it be that. If you want to spend money on these games, feel free, as long as you keep it under control. But don't ever feel that you have to, because you absolutely do not. Looking into the future with some games, particularly the Final Fantasy titles and a lot of other Japanese-based gacha games, because that's where a lot of these come from, have kind of a future sight into what's coming out because of what the Japanese version of the game that tends to be ahead will have. And I know that all of the Final Fantasy games like Record Keeper, Brave Exvius, Opera Omnia and Mobius have a lot of advanced knowledge of things, because we can look into what the JP side of these games have had. Use that to your advantage. Plan for what you want to pull for. Like I said, I know that Kuja's coming in a couple of weeks. I've known Kuja was coming in a couple of weeks for quite a few months. So I know that I want that character and I want his stuff. So I'm going to save up for that. But content creators are always going to be willing to look into these things, even if you're not. Whenever I do Opera Omnia videos, I tend to show the resources that I use, such as DecidiaDB.com or anything like that. Almost all gacha games are going to have a resource like that, so look it up. The worst thing that you can do is go and look at a character and think, well, actually I didn't like it as much as I thought I did, maybe I won't pull on this. And that's a good thing, because it means that you're then prepared for all the times you see all these other people getting really amazing things and maybe thinking, oh, maybe I'd like that luck, and you go, actually, no, I don't actually need that, I don't want it. So then you can continue saving. So hoarding up all of your stuff and using content creators like myself or the hundreds of other content creators there are for gacha games out there to help you is really, really useful. But don't let a content creator fuel your decision making alone. Cross-reference people. There's lots of content creators out there for these things, and not necessarily YouTube creators either. Cross-reference things and look up oh, okay, well this guy really likes, Joesephyr really likes Kuja, but maybe Broadway Saiyan doesn't, and I would like to know why. You might find that people have differing opinions, and that, because content creators are all human too. If you rely on them too heavily for giving or telling you what to pull on, then you might find that you end up disappointed. Let them guide you, but don't let them dominate you, or don't let online resources dominate your decisions. Go back to the 3 types of pulling that you've got: the favoritism, efficacy, and completionism. Identify which one of those you are, and let that be the guide for what you want to do. So I'm not going to try and make this video hugely long. It's just that it's a subject that's actually quite close to my heart, because it's something that I've been bitten by before, and I would really like to try and impart knowledge on others so that they don't fall into the same traps that I did. But in short, what I think that everybody needs to be able to do in order to survive playing their first gacha game, or their 6th or their 20th, is to identify not what you're pulling for, but why you want it. So, as I said earlier, when it came to the types of pulling that we have, not only that, but you also have to identify why you want something. Is it filling a role in your RPG team? Do you need a tank? Do you need a damage dealer? Damage dealers in RPG gacha games tend to be a dime a dozen, so don't panic too much if you miss one, unless you really love that character. So identify not what you're pulling for, but why you want it, whether you love the character or whether you need it as part of something to clear content, and just go with it from there. Don't allow your emotions to get the best of you, whether that be because you're angry at your poor luck, or you're jealous that someone next to you got something you didn't, and don't allow it to cause you to spend resources that you'd been saving, or worse, spending money that you didn't have, which is the worst thing you can possibly do, on something you don't actually even want. Don't let other people influence your decision making in a rash way. As I said, don't let anger, jealousy, or any of those things cause you to go, I want this, I'm gonna keep going. And then don't ever spend more than you can afford, because I've heard horror stories multiple times on the internet of people who have spent college funds, people who've spent loans, and all on digital goods that are luck based. You know, it's in a way, you kind of have to think of it as worse than gambling, because when you gamble, you're gambling for money. In this, you're actually doing the same thing, but you're not going to get what you want. You're not going to earn anything out of it. You can't sell these characters or items or anything back on again. So you have to kind of think of it in such a way that you have to enjoy it, but not rely on it, because this stuff is addictive. You know, it's very dangerous as well. So, you know, these games prey on people's jealousy, basically, or absolute fervent need to have everything or get something for nothing. And that's what that's what a slot machine does. That's what gambling does. So you kind of have to just correlate those two things and just take a step back and go, is this what I really want? Do I need this? And if you feel that you're stepping off the deep end, taking a break from these games isn't the worst thing either. Because the worst thing you can feel is oh, but if I don't log in tomorrow, I'm not going to get this or that. But taking a month or 2 break, it's the game's still going to be there if you take a break from it. That's what I did, and it helped me a great deal. So don't ever spend more than you can afford. But at the same time, don't be ashamed to spend money on something if you feel you enjoy it and enjoying it enough to warrant spending money on it. If you want to support the developers of a game, go do that. There are often small bundles that come out. Opera has a new Warrior bundle at the moment that costs £1, and you get a nice little bit out of it. You don't have to, wearing your free-to-play badge of honor on your sleeve is nice, but you have to also remember that there are a lot of people out there that will spend a little bit of money on it. Don't make them feel bad because they've broken that code of honor, because they're enjoying the game regardless, and that's all at the end of the day what we all want. And then do your research into potential future content if you've got online resources that allow it. Obviously, not every game does that, but even as a banner comes out, there are going to be people who pull for they're going to be YouTube videos out there of people pulling on stuff immediately after a banner goes live. They are immediately going to use that character. Watch what people are doing. Watch whether that stuff actually matters. Watch whether that content is actually too hard for you to beat without it, because the answer is almost always no. So if you don't need something, then, you know, if you're on the fence about doing something, then maybe just watch other people do it and then kind of decide for yourself whether you think it works for you. But at the same time, be prepared for surprises to happen, particularly in games that don't have a future site like Dragalia or Fire Emblem, like global releases. Surprises will come about, and even in the games that do have future sight, you know, global exclusive content happens all the time in these games. So just bear that in mind before you go in on any banner for any gacha game at all. So that's going to be it for this video. I really hope that this has helped people kind of identify what kind of gacha player they are, what kind of resource spender they are, and if you are having problems with anything like that, I mean, be able to be open about it. If you want to, if you do struggle with anything when it comes to like, oh, I'm spending too much, I don't know how to stop by my Discord, send me a message, something like that, because I've been there and it sucks. So if I can help even one person get out of that, then I'd be happy to do so. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think about gacha pulling in general. I mean, do you do it? Do you hate doing it now, the same as I do? Or do you just want to enjoy the games the way they are? Do you spend money on it? Do you wear your free-to-play badge of honor with pride? And if you do, what are your reasons for doing so? Because, I mean, I have a certain kind of vision of what that's like, but obviously I'm not a free-to-play player, so I don't spend fortunes either, and certainly not anymore. But I'm curious as to what different mentalities there are, and I want to kind of govern everybody, or see kind of what people like, what people don't like about these things, because I want to create discussion at the end of the day. So yes, leave a comment in the comments below about your experiences with gacha games in general, and let me know if this video helps you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video, especially to any communities for gacha games that you know, so that you can kind of hopefully help other people with the same sort of problems as well. And that's going to be it from me, so thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care!